Inside the halls of San Diego State University lies a program dedicated to storytelling and pursuing the truth. Welcome to Where You At, a podcast that takes you inside the work of alumni for the School of Journalism and Media Studies at San Diego State. Our goal is to show the success of our alumni, inspire students with the stories, and connect students and alums on a pathway to journalism success.
Hello, listeners. I am so happy to be here today. And as always, we have a very special guest. Fresh out of the Daily Aztec and not necessarily a journalism major in practice, but maybe one at heart, Isabella, the former editor-in-chief of the Daily Aztec. It's customary on this podcast to have the exiting EIC as a guest, and I'm very excited because you offer some extremely unique insight to this podcast as an aspiring therapist. Tell me, give your listeners, I guess, a little bit of an intro and tell me about yourself.
Cool. Well, like you said, very non-traditional path as far as editors and chiefs go for the Daily Aztec. But I am a December graduate, December 2025 of San Diego State. So yiffy, paid a little less money to get the same degree. But I finished my undergrad in 3.5 years, and I'm currently doing a gap semester before I start graduate school. So my undergrad was in psychology with an emphasis in neuroscience. And I've known for, this sounds insane, but I've known for probably about a decade that I wanted to go into occupational therapy. I was exposed to it for a lot of my lifetime, especially as a child. My younger brother went to it, and then as I got older, I just researched it and I started doing volunteering in the autism and disability community. And then when it was time to lock in and be an adult, I decided that I was going to study psychology because I think it's really important to understand the people that I'm treating more so than the diagnosis. And I'm very big on treating the person, not the diagnosis. And as far as OT goes, there is such a wide scope of what you can do. You can treat patients across the entire lifespan, and you can help them with their activities of daily living, general independence tasks, range of motion. Some OTs like to specialize in hand therapy. You can also specialize in pediatrics and work on like milestones and communication and behavioral challenges. There is such a wide scope, genuinely. And throughout my undergrad, I was able to shadow and kind of get a taste for each of those settings. So I did a little bit of in-clinic and then a little bit of like geriatric in-home. It honestly is so crazy how many different paths you can take. But specifically at San Diego State, I joined the Daily Aztec my freshman year because I actually have been doing journalism and photography for about the same time frame, about a decade. I started it in middle school and I did yearbook for 7 years. So I was a yearbook editor in 8th grade. I was editor-in-chief, whatever that means, being 13 years old doing that. And then in high school, I was sports editor for a year and then editor-in-chief for 2 years in a row. So I just really fell in love with graphic design and photography and storytelling, and yearbook is not a thing at a lot of colleges, so I decided to try newspaper. And I think journalism plays such an important role in any field, even in healthcare, being able to educate the population and tell news in a very transparent manner. But anyway, as far as the Daily Aztec is concerned, I joined just wanting to do it as a recreational thing, and I just love taking photos, and I thought it could be fun to go shoot sports events and, you know, stuff around campus. And then I just really fell in love with it. Like, I had honestly never considered a lot of the photojournalism stuff that I was taught, and I didn't really consider photos from a storytelling perspective until I joined newspaper, and I learned more about, you know, the photo that you choose as the main photo should be the most storytelling, and it should prompt the reader to ask questions. And just seeing that there was such a deeper meaning to the work that I was doing made me really interested in becoming an editor. So even though I was not a journalism major, I really had to, make a name for myself. So I took as many photos as I could. I took as many opportunities as there were to offer on the photo section, and I was photo editor my sophomore year. And then I hopped into managing editor the following year because I just wasn't ready to give it up. And I really saw myself doing more copy editing and just I saw the Daily Aztec and I had a vision for it. And I knew that I wanted to work my way up to editor-in-chief. So again, honestly, just side questing. I mean, I'm going to graduate school for healthcare, but I just love journalism and storytelling and all of the things that the Daily Aztec has to offer. So I was managing editor, and that really made me think like I can't wait until I have the opportunity to be editor-in-chief and really make a difference and, like actually lock it in. Managing editor felt like learning a lot of stuff, and then editor-in-chief was so cool. Just being able to start a new section, which is what we're doing. At the Daily Aztec now, something similar. We also have a podcast section. And then we also brought back the multimedia stuff, and we were focusing more on social media and really bringing our engagement up. And honestly, like I saw a huge improvement from my freshman year to my senior year. So yeah, like I just love it all. But I'm really thankful that I had the opportunity.
It's kind of crazy to have a very deep interest, or it's kind of like admirable, I guess, to have a very deep interest in two pretty different avenues, and to see yourself just like go all the way forth on both interests is a pretty interesting thing. Like, you don't see it so often that someone is very committed to, I guess, both journalism and psychology, but it's kind of like a main side quest.
It is. And I honestly do see myself pursuing it to, on a smaller extent, because grad school is a lot. But there's something called, but there's something called the American Association of Occupational Therapy, and they actually have freelance writing opportunities. So if you are an OT scholar, and part of my doctorate program is I have to make a capstone project, and it's essentially like a program where you build something related to OT, and then you pick a population, and then you go and carry out that program. So it could be something like teens with disabilities and teaching them how to cook, or older adults fall prevention, something like that. And then you bring it into the community and you actually implement it. And then you do a bunch of preliminary research and you write a thesis and you use your evidence-based stuff and you treat these patients and you see what you can do with it. But if that goes really well for you, you have the opportunity to write for the American Occupational Therapy Association. And that is my goal. I really want to create a capstone that touches hopefully multiple different communities. I mean, you kind of have to focus on one, but I would love to create something that I could scale up or down based on the population that I'm working with. And I would love to write about it. I mean, I think it's such a cool opportunity that they allow OTs to just talk about their research, talk about their experience as students, talk about the work that they do in their daily lives. And I don't see myself pursuing a PhD as of right now, but if I get really into the research, that could be something down the line. And then again, they have conferences and stuff like that. So it's really exciting that there is a very small intersection, and like that's what it would be. Just writing about the work that I do as an OT. So that's kind of my way of tying in journalism. And then I do freelance photography on the side, honestly, just for fun. But I always bring a storytelling, very, I don't know, I guess journalism approach to the photos that I take. I actually just did a freelance photo shoot for a Pilates studio. That's just a hobby that I have. And the owner sent me a bunch of inspiration photos, and she was like, I'm still trying to build my brand and I don't know what I want it to look like. So I asked her to just have a conversation with me about the brand and, tell me what are some vibes, give me some vibes and some words and like some different, like what is the theme of your brand and like what do you want people to feel when they see your photos. And I kind of tied in that photojournalism aspect of it. And I feel like I captured it really well. So I'm excited to see those go up on her website. But, here and there, I like to do some fun projects.
I feel like journalism has those really like interesting intersections with so many things, like having a community, or I guess an audience for occupational therapist journalism. I guess is something that people don't think about, but like it is there. And I feel like the vast majority of people would be interested in a lot of the stories that would pump out of like an organization like that.
I was going to say, I really like reading the articles that they post about student perspective. So I hope that's something I could maybe start to do as a student, is just talk about like the fieldwork stuff. And then even sometimes it's even just like mental health and how it intersects with OT. Like it is a very mental health centered profession, but it's also an emerging practice. Like a lot of OT programs actually don't even have a mental health course in it, which is very surprising because you can be any major and do OT as long as you do the prerequisite courses, which are a lot of psychology, but also anatomy, physiology, statistics. There's a lot of different stuff that goes into it. But yeah, like I'm super excited to have the opportunity to write about it and, be able to go back to my days of writing. It'll be a minute before I get there, but I'm excited.
Did you happen to have any like different hobbies other than, I guess, the Daily Aztec and psychology, or any psychology clubs that you might have been involved in, or any other extracurriculars?
Yeah, so during my time at SDSU, I tried to have a work-life balance, but I will say I did a lot of work. And one of the things that I put a lot of time into was the Pre-Occupational Therapy Student Association. So it was kind of a similar vibe. I was a freshman and I just found it really helpful. We had a lot of guest speakers and just people pursuing OT coming together. And I was like, I want to be president of that club. Like, I have done so much preliminary research on this field, I could probably do it. So, sophomore year, or I guess technically freshman year, I applied for all of the executive board positions. And I was like, just let me know what I can do to help. Like, any of these positions I'll be happy with. And then it just happened to be one of those years where all the seniors were leaving. So I ended up being president as a sophomore. And typically you're only a president for the last year. And it's a very small club, or it started as a small club. It was maybe like 10 of us. And then I grew it. So whenever I just graduated, I grew it to over 60. So we had a ton of people in it this last semester. And like, that was honestly such a good experience for me because I just kind of made the club what I wanted it to be. And I started offering like advising. I'm still offering it even though I'm gone, just like to pay my tribute. I don't know. But I offer academic advising that SDSU doesn't offer for pre-OT. They offer it for a lot of healthcare, but not for OT specifically. So I built this whole drive of resources for pre-OT students. And then I tried to have a lot of like social and mixer type events and then also some group volunteering. Like, it was really cool, honestly. Like, I would come to the school and like pick up the freshmen in my car and like get them off of campus for a little bit. And then we would go volunteer. I did like a coffee event and we just all kind of talked about OT and like where everyone was at in their journey. We've done like bracelet making. Like, I try to think of fun stuff where we can talk about OT and it's kind of centered on OT, but it's also just like making friendships. So really proud of the club and the way that it has grown over the years. But that was one of my favorite experiences at SDSU, was just having a community of people who are all pursuing the same thing. And especially like being able to give advice. I probably talked to over 50 people, just giving them advice on their classes or connecting them with volunteer opportunities. Like, it's honestly just the networking too that I love about undergrad. There's just so many learning moments and like people that you meet. You never know who's going to open a clinic in 10 years and have a job opening. I think it's always worth it to talk to someone and, stalk them on LinkedIn and connect with them. So that was a big part of it. And then also the Daily Aztec, in addition to being an editor, tried to keep up my contributions and do things that were not just per my job. So I continued to take photos even as managing editor. I covered the Wonderfront Festival 2 times, which was so cool. And I did multimedia coverage and photo coverage for both of those. So we interviewed a bunch of different artists and I got to be in the photo pit. Like, that was honestly one of my favorites ever. And one of my standout moments, I think, from undergrad, especially within the Daily Aztec, was the photo editor my freshman year was supposed to shoot Billy Joel at Petco Park whenever I was photo editor sophomore year. And I wanted to give her that one because, she obviously like wasn't doing the role again. And I thought it would be nice for her to do it because it was her senior year. But then she messaged me last minute saying she couldn't go. So I went. And it was the coolest thing ever. Like, I shot Billy Joel in the pouring rain at Petco Park. And I remember I was so short and he was so high up. I asked the security guard if there was any way I could stand on the chair because I was only going to be in there for 2 minutes before they kicked me out. And then he said it was fine. So you could literally, like, I'm sure from the crowd, you could see me like standing with my arms up, shooting Billy Joel. So that was one of my favorite things that SDSU has brought to me, was just those types of experiences. And like, I honestly really encourage anyone who is scared of joining clubs to not be scared, because there are so many things out there. And even if you're not, again, if you're not pursuing it professionally, like, you can totally just do it for fun. Like, that's honestly what the Daily Aztec was for me until I kind of got a little more serious. And then especially with managing editor, I was like, okay, like, this is actually, like, it's a job now. And like, I have to like actually do stuff in addition to contributing. But yeah, like, those are the 2 main things I did at SDSU. And then I also tried to volunteer throughout my undergrad. I volunteered with the Autism Tree Project Foundation. That was one that we collaborated with a lot. So I did like a I created a program there for teens. The example from before, teens with cooking. I did a monthly cooking class with my friend. It was honestly just fun. Like we just like I just pulled some recipes from online and I modified them a little bit to make it easier. And then we had about 15 teens come in. And then I did the same thing for OT Club. I designed like a POTSA sensory play group. So we have kids who are ages 2 to 5 come in and we educate the parents on OT and we talk about how OT can benefit them. And then also give them an opportunity to engage with other children their age and with their diagnosis to kind of get a gauge of how their kids interact with the world. So that was also like, again, like SDSU brought me a lot and I was able to host that event because I had so many people from the club interested in giving back. And, you know, we all bonded over it too. Like we were able to hang out before and after and just like talk about the kids and talk about what we learned. But yeah, I really tried to be engaged with my community during my time. And I'm really grateful for OT Club, especially for showing up and like being willing to even be there. Like it's crazy seeing more people volunteer for that event than people that were in the club my freshman year.
I don't think I've had someone who's created so many freshman opportunities on this podcast before. Like you're kind of paving a way for the future of occupational therapy, which by the looks of what you're saying is something that doesn't get enough recognition.
It's very like I don't want to say underground, like when your friend says like this artist is so underground and then it's like great. It's an actual
the indie therapy.
Yes. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, so we get a lot of PT students or aspiring PT students, and they realize that OT is a lot cooler than PT, and then they make the switch. It's very similar in a lot of ways.
Awesome.
I like to say that PT helps patients move from point A to point B, and then OTs help patients do things at point A and point B. So it's more focused on what matters to that patient and what their independence related tasks are. So for some of them, it is functional movements and functional mobility and picking up items and being able, you know, to hang clothes in their closet or like get dressed in the morning or brush your teeth, cook a meal independently. For patients with aging disorders, sometimes it's just remembering to take medications, reading clocks. Patients with brain injuries and strokes, they used to be super independent and now they're not. And OT kind of evaluates the different areas of occupation in their life and helps them create goals to eventually lead to the road of independence. And I think PT does play a role in that, but I just love how holistic the field of OT is. And again, the scope is so wide. You're really treating the person from a biopsychosocial approach. And there is a big mental health component, which is what I love about it, and which is why I decided to do psych instead of kinesiology. But I'm really grateful that so many people are learning more about it. I think it's such an awesome field, and you will never get bored. Like, if you hate your life, you can completely change it. You were qualified to do that. You come out as a generalist, so you can definitely specialize later on, but you could change your career 10 times within the same scope of practice. So I really love it. And like, obviously I'm biased because I've wanted to do it for a long time, but I think especially bringing people over from PT makes me happy that more people are open to the idea of OT. And honestly, the club is a lot of just talking about what is OT and what can OTs do. So a lot of learning what your elevator pitch is and explaining it to people who have never heard of it. So, but once they hear about it, then they are like, oh, wow, maybe I want to do this instead of PT, because there is a lot of crossover. And if anything, OT has a slightly wider scope because you're treating all these different skills and not just movements. So
it's really cool. Is there any particular reason at the end of the day that you chose SDSU?
Yeah, so I chose SDSU for a lot of reasons, but the first one is I just love the city of San Diego. I think it is the most fun city ever to live in when you're younger. And I also really think that the campus has such, like, there's so many people, there's always something going on. And I love the feeling of being part of something bigger. There's so many different organizations that have their own smaller events, but at any given time, there are so many people on campus. There are, you know, you could open a door down the hallway and like there's probably something happening in that room. And I just love the way that it feels like a community. I think there's a good balance of academic and also, I don't really party, but a little bit of the party life too. I think it's nice to have the social aspect of it. I think it's nice to have sports that people care a lot about. I even just love that everyone is so friendly and outgoing. I think the type of people that go to SDSU are very friendly and outgoing. And, you know, it kind of shaped me into the person I am today. I was honestly pretty shy and I did not party in high school. And also coming out of COVID, it was a rough time for us introverts, but it really taught me to be more extroverted and put myself out there. So I think the atmosphere of SDSU is something I really appreciate. And then also the academics. I knew their psych program was really good. I am very interested in doing traumatic brain injury rehab, which is why I did the neuroscience emphasis. And I think the couple of classes that I did for that emphasis were super helpful. And I just love that they had so many opportunities to kind of sprinkle things in to my degree. And then also too, like the classes that I did take, I had opportunities for internships and, more specialized classes for stuff that I enjoy. There were a ton of electives for psychology. And then I also just love being near the beach, being outside. Like I have done a million things in San Diego, and there are probably still a million more things to do. But I think SDSU
Absolutely.
is a great mix of everything. And I know there's USD and UCSD, but I think SDSU is the perfect campus size. And, having to live in a dorm your freshman year honestly really shapes you and like gets you acclimated to the culture. I just loved every year has taught me something new. And yeah, there's so many options out there, truly. I mean, if you're interested in hiking, there's a hiking club. If you're interested in something more academic, like there are so many academic clubs and even like the leadership opportunities too. Like you could not have told me freshman year that I was going to be editor in chief. That was not in the cards at all. But it was just like, it was honestly the people. Like I loved working with the people that I met through the Daily Aztec, and everyone was very accepting of the fact that I was coming from a science major and I did not have a formal background in journalism, just kind of hobby stuff. But I really appreciate it. Like nobody has ever doubted me or said anything less just because I don't have the education in journalism. And I love that. Like everyone is very accepting, genuinely.
Journalism is all about experience at the end of the day. So I feel like if you're really committed and you're in that environment, you'll pick up a lot of what you need to know, especially if with even photo experiences and doing photo stories. I feel as though that you could learn a lot from that. And I'm glad that you got fully acclimated into things. How did your time at SDSU, I guess, set you up for your career in any way? What's the future looking like?
Yeah, so I think, as I mentioned, SDSU had so many different opportunities for me. And even like for pre-PT and pre-OT students, you're able to volunteer at the SDSU Adaptive Fitness Clinic, which is in the Peterson Gym. I thought that was a really unique opportunity. I've never seen a school allow students to be so clinically hands-on. And that experience alone, I think, made me stand out in my graduate school applications. So just a lot of those like small things. And then like my internship class for psychology, it was a guaranteed internship placement. So you got to choose out of a bunch of options. Wow. And they were all mental health based, but you were going to get one of those three options. So it was nice knowing like it almost took the stress off of like you will get experience. It's within your curriculum. And I really loved that about SDSU, how they prioritize the hands-on stuff, especially for science majors. I think it's nice to actually see what you're learning in the textbook in real life, because a lot of it is very applicable. But as for the future, I would say all of those experiences prepared me, and I will be starting my doctorate, which is a 3-year program. Kind of intense. It's 9 semesters, but packed into 3 years. Yes, it's like a bachelor's degree and then some. It's crazy, but it's within 3 years. And really cool. I will be doing that at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. So I do think everything I did at SDSU really made me feel confident going into applications. And, they were like honestly blown away by the fact that SDSU had so many opportunities. Like probably half my resume was just like, this was a class I took, like this was an opportunity that was posted online and like it was through SDSU. Like they asked me about some of the opportunities and a lot of my answer was it just came from SDSU.
Amazing network. I mean, amazing connections. Are there any other moments, I guess, as we kind of wrap up and see the end of our little chat? Are there any other moments or projects that we haven't touched on that have led to where you are now throughout your SDSU experience?
I'll say the last thing that I think was pretty impactful that comes to mind when you ask that is the Daily Aztec's print edition. We brought it back this past semester, and it was something that we toyed with a lot my sophomore year because I just remember everyone feeling really burnt out from print and people weren't really picking it up. And again, like not being in the journalism classes, I guess I kind of had a rough idea of understanding why people don't care about print as much. But just kind of learning, like literally observing the school and seeing people not pick up the papers, we made the decision to cut it. And then, people started to miss it. Like once it, you don't miss it till it's gone, right? So then we got a lot of requests junior year to bring it back, but we weren't able to bring it back in its full capacity. We did one print edition, and again, it was kind of low engagement. So we put it to rest. And then I think the demand for it really grew. So being able to bring it back after almost a year of not doing it was crazy to me. And like, especially being in leadership for so many years, I was really the only editor that had previous experience putting together something like that. I think we had one or two other editors who played a role in it, but again, weren't fully managing the whole process. And I did have one print edition in upper management where I was able to understand the behind the scenes pretty deeply, but then we got rid of it. So I had to like get that knowledge back into my head. But I was super proud of our team for putting all of that together, and especially our graphics team. I probably spent 2 hours a week just talking to them and working through stuff and giving them edits and, bringing their ideas to life. I think it was so cool to just say, like, here's our general theme, and I trust your visual interpretation of that. And they killed it. Like, I am so proud of them. And I think that's one of the projects I'm most proud of, because I had to take all of this institutional knowledge that was just stored in a file folder in my brain and bring it back to life, and then teach everyone else how to do it too, so that we could pass on the knowledge. But I was just really proud that I was able to, make it happen and like kind of take the lead on that project. And now I feel really confident that the team this semester will be able to also carry it on. And then hopefully in the future, they make it kind of an exclusive thing. But I just love seeing the reaction of people posting the paper. We had like a word search. People would actually do the word search. It was just so cool for people to actually appreciate print media. And I think that's one of my favorite projects I've done. It was very creative and fun. And the graphics team and I sat there for so long just thinking of like, what can we put on the back page that's interesting? What types of stories do you want to include? What types of graphics are the audience is going to like? And it felt very hands-on and very involved. So I really had a good time making it.
Print media is not dead. It's alive and well on school campuses. I guess lastly, is there any one piece of advice that someone has told you, or that I guess that you've overheard that has helped you throughout your career journey?
I'll say that my favorite piece of advice that I've tried to follow and I feel has done me good is just say yes to everything. And I know that's so cliche to say, but it genuinely is true. In undergrad, there are so many opportunities and so many, like you'll see an event posted or like a volunteer opportunity or like a networking thing. Like I would just honestly do it all, because you just never know who you're going to meet. I mean, I've made so many connections through SDSU, and like genuinely, I feel if I didn't just like go to that first club meeting or even the Daily Aztec, I was so hesitant to join because I thought it was a journalism only thing. I'm glad that I was like, you know what, like, let me just go. And if they kick me out, it's okay. And they did not kick me out. So I'm really grateful for that. But until you try, you don't know. So my whole thing is just do it, like Nike.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I wish you the best of luck in good old Nevada, which is kind of awesome, and your psychology journey. And I hope to see any and all written journalism psychology content that you make in the future.
Thank you. I will enter my influencer era and post it online.
Please.
So.
Well, thank you again, and I appreciate it. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Where Ya At podcast. This is Devin Watley from the class of 2021. Thanks to Martine Marine for creating the music you're hearing right now, and Alex Piscatelli for her work on the podcast name and artwork on social media. And a reminder to SDSU alums, we really want to know where you at. Tell us about your career. Get involved in the school. There's many ways you can do this, from donating your time or money, mentoring students, to even speaking in classrooms, in person, or on Zoom. Your work can help us grow the program and create more opportunities for our students to succeed. Again, thanks for listening. Subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. Recommend us a future guest. And go Aztecs.